I gotta say, I just watched the Apple event talking about iPads, and before I talk more about the actual devices themselves, because I planned on doing some more, but doesn't look like everything's been updated. Normally, when you come to the website after one of the events, everything's been updated immediately. Now, I promise you that after I click refresh, watch it say M4. But no, yeah. So you can see up. It is Tuesday, May 7th at 9:44 a.m. I'm in the Central Time Zone, and yeah, stuff has not been updated yet. So that is unlike Apple. If I come to iPad, it says there's a new one, and you come here, and it's still that. So what happens if we buy it? I know they aren't available for purchase yet. You can pre-order. But normally what happens is the site goes down for a brief moment. When I say brief, I mean it's probably the entirety of the actual keynote. And then when the keynote is done, things are updated. So I can imagine a lot of stuff is going on in the back. And okay, so here on the buy page, yes, everything has been updated for the new price because it is $1,000. I believe the old one started at $799. And here we have this 13-inch one with they both have the Ultra Retina XDR displays. So good. And also, yeah, the base starting storage started at $256. So I am going to go back to iPad. And interesting here. So that's just kind of an overview. But yeah, it notices that everything's new. But yeah, the page to actually look at the stuff has not yet been updated. So that is Did you have a hard time waking up this morning? If you did, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, like, and comment below. Hopefully today isn't Monday. Take some screenshots. Mainly because, and I should probably just go to GSM Arena, but I just hate that sometimes when they make their claims, it's as if, oh, this new device does something, and even if that something is something that the rest of the industry isn't actually doing, that doesn't mean that their previous device also didn't do it. So I do remember them specifically talking about the fact that the new iPad Pro with M4 delivers 1,000 nits of full screen brightness and 1,600 nits of peak brightness. But it looks like the one with M2 also did that. So we'll see, like I said, I hate that I'm not great at doing all this, and I'm not trying to find fault in what they do, because I'll save that for, the next part of this video. But I was hoping to actually give them a bunch of praise, and I was going to take my screenshots and do everything, but, yeah, things aren't up to date yet. So can I just compare them? iPad Pro. Is this the 6th gen? I don't know what generation we're on anymore. No. Because it would have been the Ultra, whatever. So yeah, so I feel like this is very unlike Apple to keep us waiting. And I'm going to come back to this later. All right. So today is Tuesday, May 7th. I recently finished watching the Apple event all about iPads. Watched the whole thing. It was pretty interesting. I would say nothing out of the norm. And I want to say shout out to The Verge for making this 12-minute cut. I hope that my video isn't much longer, but instead of me just looking at a bunch of steel text, let's see what they have to say. Of course, I give my thoughts and opinions, and then that'll be the end of that video.
Good morning. Welcome to Apple Park.
Some Air users would prefer an even larger display. So, inspired by iPad Pro, where about half the users choose a larger screen, we created a 13-inch model of the new iPad Air as well. The 13-inch Air has 30% more screen real estate than the 11-inch Air.
So I made a huge rant about this, I guess last week or earlier this week prior to this event actually occurring. And I still just don't understand the point. I mean, I know it's hard sometimes to look at things from other people's perspectives. And when I think about an iPad, 11 inches and smaller, and even with the 11-inch one, I'm like, yeah, for drawing and things like that, I can kind of understand it. But as I was saying in the previous video, for those of us who just think, oh, it's something light, something portable, let's get an iPad Air. And for people who buy the iPad Pros, even though they don't actually need a Pro device, I just don't grasp the rationale, and maybe it's not for me to understand. And I always have to preface, I'm not hating on Apple, because yeah, the iPad is what it is and it dominates the tablet market. The iPhone dominates the cell phone market in the United States. And anytime we're talking about iPads, like, I have to bring up this MacBook Air. If I didn't like anything about the company, I wouldn't even pretend to recommend one of these things. But the iPad Air, I feel, is the best computing device for most casual users. And when we talk about the price point, I feel like it only makes sense to get this all-inclusive package compared to buying an iPad and then literally having to buy everything separate. So if you do want to draw on it, which yes, the iPad has drawing capabilities because it's a touchscreen, you have to then buy the Apple Pencil. If you do want it to feel like a MacBook, which they mentioned later on in the keynote, and I don't know if it'll be included in my cut, there's a Magic Keyboard that you can buy, but that's additional cost. And then I'm like, if you want something to feel like a MacBook, why not just buy the MacBook? So let's continue.
Also redesigned the iPad Air to put the front-facing camera on the landscape edge. And it features Center Stage, which uses machine learning to automatically keep everyone in the field of view. The new Air features landscape stereo speakers with spatial audio, so it sounds great. The new Air comes in 4 finishes, a new blue and a new purple, as well as a beautiful starlight and space gray. So we're stepping up performance in a big way with the incredibly fast M2.
Now, it only makes sense. It's the natural progression of technology. Oh, new product, hopefully something new internal. We had the M1 chip, and now we have the M2 chip. I won't talk about the Pro until we start talking about the Pro in the video. But yeah, okay. I mean, it's going to be fast. And I think that's another thing where I struggle to fully understand or grasp the whole point of this product line as a whole. Because even if we were to only look at the product line, meaning only iPads, it's all right, you put these M series chips in the Pro device first. And then now you put the M series chip in the Air device. And of course, this is M2 and the previous generation had the M1. What is it? What can't you do on the Air that you can do on the Pro? And then it turns more into okay, is this an actual technical limitation? Or is this just a decision Apple has made, kind of kneecapping the MacBook Air, kind of kneecapping the iPad Air? Because even though the hardware is there, they might turn off some cores or do something, So I just don't understand. I really just don't understand.
M2 is a powerful chip that's improved in a number of ways over M1. It has a faster CPU, faster GPU, and much faster neural engine. And when combined with faster memory bandwidth, the new Air is nearly 50% faster than the previous Air with M1. And compared to iPad Air with A14 Bionic, the new Air provides up to an enormous 3 times faster performance.
And I do think that's funny that for the majority of the time we're just talking about the previous year, the M1. Hey, let's just talk about the people who might have older iPad Airs, and if you're upgrading from that, potentially 3 times faster. Doing what? We don't know. What tests did they actually run? What applications were they using? Who knows? But there is, I guess I will take what they're saying at what it actually is, that there is at least one instance where Apple was able to show that by performing that that when performing some task, the the M2 chip in the iPad Air was 3 times faster than doing that same task on an iPad Air with whatever A series chips you just mentioned. But again, no real information here. It's just 3x. Okay, thanks.
The new Air works with the Magic Keyboard, with its built-in trackpad, backlit keys, and terrific floating design.
Now I'm just gonna stop right there, and this is really where I think I have even more difficulty, and I'm glad that The Verge got this clip when using a laptop. Like right now, I'm recording on a 16-inch MacBook Pro. Screen's relatively big, and sometimes, yes, I need to see what's at the very bottom of the screen, but frequently everything is a little higher up, and my neck isn't really strained as much. But look how low everything is. I mean, the thing just seems so small and uncomfortable. Like, she does not look like she's comfortable. I know she's, looking like she's supposed to be working or something, but I have a tablet over there, and I would never want to use that as a main computing device, even when I'm out and about, because of just how uncomfortable the experience is. I am very fortunate to be old enough to not have had to gone through school using netbooks. I was actually a teacher for a year or two when they were using them, and I said those things look terribly uncomfortable to use because there's not enough real estate to do anything on them. So an actual laptop, am I upside down? Yeah, I am. So an actual laptop to me only makes sense. And then of course you'll say, well, the bigger screen for the 13-inch iPad Air. Yeah, but then of course you got to buy the Magic Keyboard, and then it's just other accessories. And at that point, again, I just keep coming back to it, and I keep turning it upside down. You just buy this. Not hating on Apple, they made a really good product right here in the MacBook Air. Just buy this. And at the beginning of the keynote, which was not captured in the Verge's cut of it, Tim Cook, of course, goes on to say that the 13 and 15-inch MacBook Airs are the most popular selling 13 and 15-inch laptops. And I don't know what data they're using, but even as a person who, yes, likes using a variety of technology, a variety of companies' technology, at this particular time, when anybody asks, oh, what kind of laptop should I get? I have a hard time recommending anything except a Mac. And that's it. I mean, I'm not a gamer, so I'm not going to, try to talk on that. But I would say, well, if you're a gamer, yeah, I could probably do some quick Googling and just, GPU, CPU, and a bunch of RAM, and you'll be good to go. But for the average consumer, and even the person who does a little more than what the average consumer would do, I still have a hard time recommending anything but the Mac. So for people looking for laptops, buy Mac. For people considering getting an iPad, unless you need to draw on a screen for some reason, whether it's just for fun or something in your actual workflow, I would still say forego the iPad and buy the Mac. Unless we are talking about the iPad mini or the base model regular iPad, which at the end of this, the price came down, I think, to $349. So in those situations, yes, fine, buy the little tablet, little relatively inexpensive one. But when we start approaching that $1,000, I don't see why buying an iPad is a good decision for anybody. Again, unless you need to draw on that screen for some reason.
And of course, it supports the amazing Apple Pencil. And with M2 under the hood, the new Air supports Apple Pencil Hover for greater precision, letting you preview your mark before you make it.
Now, I think I commented on this whenever this Apple Pencil was released, that the whole hover thing, whether it's a combination of the Apple Pencil, the M2 chip, or whatever, like neither one of those, I'm sure, is required to actually allow that feature. That's just Apple gatekeeping a particular feature just because. So that's unfortunate that they do stuff like that, but they are a business, so we got to understand that they would do something like that.
That's the new iPad Air, now available in 11-inch and 13-inch models. iPad Air, now available in 11-inch and 13-inch models.
Now, usually this is where I just talk about whatever iPad or whatever device from Apple on the screen captures everything. But we hit on the M2 chip. Yeah, recycle, cool. Touch ID's always been there, at least for a while. Wi-Fi 6E, cool. I'm sure there's going to be somebody who complains about the fact that it's not Wi-Fi 7. For another couple of years, I'm going to say Wi-Fi 6 is fine. I mean, yeah, I know there are some differences. Otherwise, they wouldn't exist. But most people don't even have routers or access points that are Wi-Fi 7. So future-proof, whatever. Nothing's ever, future-proofed. It's just future resilient. That's what I like to say. But I think we covered everything. When it comes to storage, I know I didn't mention that, or camera placement. Good on them for finally putting the camera where it should be. So that way when you're FaceTiming, the laptop, or excuse me, the iPad is in landscape mode. So now you're not looking off to the side when you are FaceTiming. And when it comes to storage, I'm always curious. What are you storing on your device if you are the one, or if you are a person that gets a terabyte? I don't remember what the previous maximum amount of storage on the iPad Air was before, but even 512 gigs on an iPad, what are you doing on an iPad Air? And then I'm like, okay, for those users, would they not better be suited for whatever a Pro iPad would allude to or allow for? So I just don't understand. I've said that already in this video, but in terms of the amount of bleed and overlap between what an iPad is and what a Mac is, and then also what an iPad Air is compared to what an iPad Pro is, I feel like there's just a lot of duplication. But anyway, let's continue to the next item.
And both models feature double the starting storage, which is now 128 gigabytes.
And that should have happened years ago. I mean, at minimum, it should have happened when the iPhone 13 came out, because when we went from the 12 to the 13, I believe that's when storage increased from 64 gigs to 128, which, yeah, for now, I feel 128 is fine. Obviously, I feel that it would be nice if there was a micro SD card of some sort, which, regardless of how fast micro SD cards are in terms of reading and writing, if the technology were adopted by Apple, and I hate to say it, and other companies continue to put those types of things in their mobile devices, the technology would continue to improve. And I read an article recently, I need to revisit it, but I'm pretty sure Samsung is still in the process of iterating on what the micro SD card is and improving speeds. So for some people might say, well, the use of an SD card would degrade the overall speed and performance when reading and writing from the drive compared to reading and writing from internal memory. Yeah, there might be some degradation, but at the same time, paying, whatever the amount is for the base model and then having to pay hundreds of dollars more for additional storage that you can't upgrade yourself, it would maybe be a good trade-off for a lot of folks that were just going to buy the base, spend another $50 to $100 and get whatever that'll get you in terms of price for micro SD card storage.
We've also expanded the number of storage options by adding 512 and 1 terabyte. We're thrilled that the new 11-inch Air still starts at just $599.
All right. Now, that answered one of my earlier questions in terms of what were the storage options before. But yeah, if I'm remembering correctly, 64 gigs and 256 were the only two options. I believe those are still the two options for the base model iPad as well as the iPad mini. Pricing, okay. So I'm like, all right, if you have or if you're interested in the 11-inch one, $599, 128 gigs, all right, cool. I believe he mentions the cost of the keyboard, so just tack on another $300. So now we're at $900, no less, because it might be $350 for one of them, or close to. So $900 if you buy that, and then of course for the 13-inch one, we're at what, $1,100. And that's, again, base storage starting at 128. So for $10.99 here, and this thing is frequently on sale at places like Best Buy. I think the lowest I've seen it was $849. You get everything included, and you get 256 gigs of storage. You get a bigger battery. You get better speakers. You get 2 Thunderbolt ports. You get I don't remember. I think I might have removed the headphone jack on the iPads. I'm really not paying attention. But yeah, I still, again, just buy the Mac. And I always do that, man. So yeah, just buy the Mac. The pricing, it doesn't make sense. Again, unless you need a touchscreen.
And the 13-inch Air is just $799. You can order the new Air today, and it'll be available next week. This is the all-new, impossibly thin iPad Pro. The new Pro comes in 2 sizes, a new, super portable 11-inch model and a new, expansive 13-inch model. The 11-inch Pro is 5.3 millimeters thin, and the 13-inch Pro is an incredible 5.1 millimeters thin. Compared to the previous iPad Pro, the difference is striking. The new iPad Pro is even thinner than the iPod Nano, which makes it the thinnest Apple product ever.
All right. Now, yeah, sometimes it is nice to, sometimes it is nice to, I guess, show off your technological marvels. And thinness, for most people, is a positive thing. But spoiler alert, they've put the M4 chip in this iPad before it even comes to the Mac. And they also mentioned the fact that they've redesigned the thermals on the inside. But at some point, and I'm sure somebody else will mention it too, just that when you're constricting space and there's minimal airflow, at some point you're going to start reaching some thermal limitations and some performance limitations. And while being thin is nice in terms of being portable, I have my Galaxy S Tab over there. My roommate has the iPad Pro. I don't know if it's the M1 or the one previous or prior to that. Not sure. But either way, they aren't burdensome to carry. So sacrificing, or I guess I should say reducing it by a millimeter or 2, which then could also potentially compromise the performance threshold. I don't know if it's worth it. I mean, I feel like, yes, Apple does try to push thinness. We've gone through that with the Mac, and it's nice to see that this MacBook Pro that I'm using is thicker and is able to have the ports and have the fans that are required to cool the chips on the inside. So I know there are no fans in the iPad, but still sometimes it's one of those things of, well, making it thinner, what did that really do? If the overall goal is to make it more portable, then fine. But then to also, in the same statement, announce that you put your most powerful chip in it, I don't know how well those are going to go. Now, I can imagine what's going to happen, though, is we're going to get benchmarks and things like that, and they'll be fine. I mean, whatever they will be. And then later this year, when we do get a new Mac that has the M4 chip in it, then Apple will further boast how much better it is as a result of the design of the chassis and stuff like that. So cool on them, and we'll talk more about the M4 chip when he actually verbally states that that's what's in this device. But I think all that just to say, making it thinner doesn't necessarily make it a better product.
The 11-inch model is less than a pound, and the 13-inch model is nearly a quarter pound lighter than its predecessor. iPad Pro comes in 2 great finishes, silver and space black. We wanted to give customers an even more remarkable visual experience, and we did just that by bringing OLED to iPad for the very first time. So we developed a state-of-the-art display that uses 2 OLED panels and combines the light from both to deliver phenomenal full-screen brightness. This technology is called Tandem OLED, and it's a breakthrough for iPad Pro. The new Pro can support an incredible 1,000 nits of full-screen brightness for both SDR and HDR content, and 1,600 nits of peak HDR brightness.
Now, I'm glad that he brought that up, and let me see if I can drag this up and make it look fine. All right, so and hopefully I did put what I needed to put at the beginning of this video, but he just mentioned peak brightnesses. What you're looking at right now on the screen is the peak brightness for the previous iPad Pro. So nothing has changed. Yeah, tandem OLED, whatever, and yeah, cool for them for finally bringing an OLED display to the iPad. But in terms of how good it's going to look, I don't think anything really has changed. I mean, the blacks might be a little blacker since we're not using mini LED for both of them, or whatever. But yeah, they sometimes operate in isolation. If they want to mention a stat that is good for whatever product they are currently talking about, there's always the possibility that either A, the competition has already done it, or B, they themselves have already done it and are just including it in this current iteration of whatever it is, kind of ignoring the fact that it's not really a new feat.
The display in the new Pro takes XDR precision to a whole new level, and we're calling it the Ultra Retina XDR. And it's coming to both models. And for Pro users working in high-end...
And let me just stop that real quick, because I think he specifically emphasized that it's coming to both models, because I want to say with the current, or I'll say the previous iPad Pro, the bigger one had the better screen, I think. I mean, I would, include something on the screen if I'm wrong. But yeah, I think they chose to segment the iPad Pro based off of screen size in the past.
Manage workflows, or in the most demanding ambient lighting conditions, we're excited to bring a nano texture glass option to iPad Pro for the very first time. Nano texture glass is precisely etched at a nanometer scale, maintaining image quality and contrast while scattering ambient light for even less glare. For the new iPad Pro, you might expect that we would use the extremely powerful M3. Introducing M4. That's right, the new Pro jumps from M2 all the way to M4.
M4 is built on second generation 3nm technology that's even more power efficient. And M4 also features an entirely new display engine. The new CPU with up to 4 performance cores, and now with 6 efficiency cores, all with next generation ML accelerators, delivers up to 50% faster CPU performance over M2 in the previous iPad Pro. The next generation 10-core GPU architecture includes powerful features like dynamic caching. Power efficient. And M4 also features an entirely new display.
Now, I every time I see one of these little images of their silicon, I applaud them on, yes, trying to give us a visual representation of what, these microscopic things actually look like. But for some instances, it's, okay, you put this chip in your device. And in this case, it's the M4. But I'm confident that if we were to go back and look at this exact image for whether it's the M3, or let's specifically talk about the M2, since the M2 is what is now in the what is now in the iPad Air, if the chip can support a feature and then you put that chip in another product, but then that product doesn't support that feature, I'm not a huge fan of that. Now, I know that's nothing new, but I just feel like that's further complicating things for me as an individual. And the only thing, I stopped this literally just for the ProMotion support. So 10 hertz to 120 hertz ProMotion support. If, and I know it does, the M2 chip supports that, why can't the iPad Air support that? Or, better yet, why can't my MacBook Air support it? If there's an M2 chip in here, and at some point there'll be an M4 chip in there. But yeah, it won't get all the same basic features that Apple deems as pro or whatever, even though they aren't. And I think what really grinds my gears is support for USB 3 or faster. So I will go off on a super long tangent when it comes to USB 3 support, but there are so many devices that support it, and for some reason the base model iPhone 15 doesn't. And if we talk about chip architecture and iPads that have certain chips, but then the corresponding iPhone doesn't. USB 3 is possible over Lightning, but it only existed in one very first iPad Pro. Like, so just the things that they come up with to segment their devices, for me, just makes them more and more confusing, more and more hard to recommend. So even with the M4 and the iPad and the iPad Pro, whatever, I'm still just going to tell you, go buy yourself. And this isn't even the M3 MacBook Air. This is the M2 MacBook Air. And heck, I have no problem recommending the M1 still. I mean, I bought this because of the form factor change, but I'm so upset at myself that I missed it. But for like a day, the M1 MacBook Air was on sale at Best Buy for $399. I'm so mad that I saw that so late in the day because I don't even need one. But I probably would have went and picked one up if the Best Buy here actually had one. But even at $700, I think you can buy a new one from Walmart right now. And for sure, you can find used ones for good prices. I just have a hard time recommending these iPads.
The new CPU with up to 4 performance cores, and now with 6 efficiency cores, all with next-generation ML accelerators, delivers up to 50% faster CPU performance over M2 in the previous iPad Pro. The next-generation 10-core GPU architecture includes powerful features like dynamic caching and brings hardware-accelerated mesh shading and ray tracing to iPad for the first time.
I'm pretty sure all of those were included in the M3 keynote whenever they talked about that, so I don't think anything is new per se. So, yeah.
So games like Diablo Immortal look fantastic, and pro rendering apps like Octane will flat out fly, with up to 4 times faster performance than M2. M4 can deliver the same performance as M2 using just half the power. And now with M4...
Now, I am curious to see how true that actually is. Using so same performance, but using half the power as M2. So therefore, I mean, and again, it's not just, oh, I'm sitting here casually browsing the web, and if I don't change my use cases at all, going from an M2 MacBook Air to an M4 MacBook Air, whenever it's released, I'll get literally twice the battery life. I don't think you can measure things like that. It's doing certain tasks, doing certain things. That's where they're able to come up with these metrics. But yeah, just like casually doing stuff, I doubt a person would see twice the battery life.
We have our most powerful neural engine ever, capable of an astounding 38 trillion operations per second. That's a breathtaking 60 times faster than our first neural engine in the A11 Bionic. So that's M4.
And they're mentioning the A11 Bionic just to... very, very old iPad. Let's just, for the sake of it, compare it to what we got right now. So 60 times faster.
It's built with cutting-edge technology.
And again, this is where I usually just talk about stuff that's on this particular screen. But for the most part, everything's been covered. Even with whatever they're trying to show right now, still, my message is the same, that we are over 30 minutes into this, and I doubt anybody's going to get this far. Just buy a Mac. Unless you have to draw.
Enables the breakthrough design and stunning display of the new Pro.
By incorporating graphite sheets into the main housing and copper in the Apple logo, we've been able to improve thermal performance by nearly 20%. And the combination of this improved design, along with M4, means the new iPad Pro is up to 4 times faster than the previous iPad Pro with M2.
And that's what I was talking about before, that they've done some stuff with the thermals, so we'll see exactly how good it is. And I'm sure there's some people that already have iPads in their possession. I'm sure there's an embargo or whatever that they can't talk about stuff. And on the day that they can, your YouTube feed will be flooded with stuff talking about the iPad. And yeah, they're going to have to do thermal tests to really see and then compare the M4 chip in an iPad to the M2 chip in the previous iPad, as well as the M3 chip in the MacBook Air. Anything that has a fan, I don't think would be a fair comparison. So yeah, just the base model M3 MacBook Air compared to this iPad, and then of course compared to the iPad that came out previously. Heck, might as well throw in the current now iPad Air, since that now has M2 as well. So, so yeah, a bunch of things right there. And let me just recap. So iPad Air with M2, iPad Pro with M2, iPad Pro with M4, MacBook Air with M2, MacBook Air with M3, I feel are the ones that all should be compared just to see how these chips handle in different form factors, all with no fans.
And up to an astounding 10 times faster than the original iPad Pro. With reference mode, iPadOS can precisely match color requirements for tasks like color grading, where accurate and consistent image quality are extremely critical. iPadOS also has advanced frameworks like CoreML that make it easy for developers to tap into the neural engine to deliver powerful AI features right on device. Introducing Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro 2.
Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro for iPad were redesigned from the ground up for touch. Let's start with Final Cut Pro. With the new iPad Pro and M4, it absolutely screams, with final rendering up to 2 times faster than M1. Live Multicam. Live Multicam enables filmmakers to connect and preview up to 4 cameras all at once, all in one place. Creators can...
Now, 2 things. Now, he just mentioned things rendering up to 2 times faster than M1. But, I mean, we've been talking about M2, so see how the things just aren't even consistent? And actually, let me rewind just to make sure he said that.
For touch. Let's start with Final Cut Pro. With the new iPad Pro and M4, it absolutely screams, with final rendering up to 2 times faster than M1.
Yeah, see, and that's, so what do any of these things actually mean? Because for the majority of what was talked about with the previous speakers, we were talking about or comparing M4 to M2. But then now in this little section, he's comparing M4 to M1. And of course the previous iPad as well. So I mean, if I could have summarized this, which again, we're 37 minutes into this. The iPad is fine, and a new one means slightly better in performance doing certain tasks. And that's it.
Live Multicam. Live Multicam enables filmmakers to connect and preview up to 4 cameras all at once, all in one place.
Now, I will say that it's pretty cool. When I'm sitting here recording my little videos, I have OBS open, and I'm using right now the webcam on the MacBook. But sometimes I'll have my little Sony camera connected, and I can have a stream coming from that. But I mean, I'm sure I could Google some stuff and figure out how to make it a better thing. And I also know that the iPhone will simultaneously send a feed if I connect it. So it's nice stuff that they have. And yeah, I feel like this is actually pretty cool that you can, monitor multiple different wireless streams coming into the iPad using this software, which my guess is it's not a new thing that can be done. It's new to the iPhone/iPad, perhaps. But yeah, it's nice that it's available for those who choose to purchase these devices.
Creators can remotely direct each video angle and dial in exposure, white balance, focus, and more. To support Live Multicam, we created an entirely new app for iPhone and iPad, and we call it Final Cut Camera. Final Cut Camera allows users to easily connect multiple iPhones or iPads to capture additional angles during a live multicam shoot, or record professional videos with precise manual controls as a free standalone app. Final Cut Pro automatically transfers and syncs each live multicam angle so you can seamlessly move from production to editing. New external project support now offers creators the flexibility of editing projects directly off a drive, leveraging the fast Thunderbolt connection of iPad Pro. Editing and finishing is incredible with M4, with support for up to 4 times more streams of ProRes RAW than M1. Logic Pro 2 is so exciting.
See, he did it again. He compared M4 to M1. So I like consistency, and I feel like Apple's all over the place where they've compared M4 to M2 and M1 and I think the last iPad Pro to have an A series chip as well as the very first iPad Pro. So it's just like, yeah, it's better than all of them. So let's just mention them all at one point in time. The only thing they haven't directly compared it to, which they're not going to do, I believe, is to M3 in a MacBook.
And it's smarter than ever. Now, Drummer is getting some new bandmates in a feature we call Session Players. We're introducing an all-new bass and keyboard player, and like Drummer, they're built using AI. Producers today rely on hardware to infuse digital recordings with analog warmth. Now, we're packing all of that into Logic Pro with a new plugin we call Chroma Glow. We use machine learning to model that sound in amazing detail. Stem Splitter. It takes any recording and quickly extracts 4 distinct parts for voice, bass, drums, and other instruments. And with the power of M4, it all happens on device, super fast, so you can get on with remixing your song. So that's Logic Pro 2.
When creating a project in Final Cut Pro, users can capture detailed 4K ProRes video using the 12 megapixel back camera and rich audio from 4 studio quality mics.
I have no experience using the cameras on an iPad or an iPad Pro really, so I can't speak to them too much. But as I've been saying, in terms of overlapping use cases, overlapping product lines, it's the iPhone, the iPad, and the Mac. All right, so you put this M4 chip in your iPad, and then now, we're talking about capturing video or whatever, but then you put your better cameras on the iPhone. I mean, which one is, I guess neither is supposed to be the better device. They're just different devices that share a lot of the same parts. Like my guess would be that this 12 megapixel camera is similar to one of the older iPhone cameras. I mean, that'll be a guess. So yeah, I can see why they want you to own all 3 products, because all 3 products are slightly different, as they should be. However, they overlap so much that it starts to become difficult to understand why all 3 product lines actually exist. So it's not safe anymore to just say that an iPad is a bigger iPhone, because there are some differences. However, some of those differences lean in the favor of the iPhone, and some of those differences lean in the favor of the iPad. So yeah, I would much rather assume that if a person wanted to use one of these Apple products to do some high quality recording, they would use an iPhone to do it. But then if they want to then edit everything, use the iPad. But I would definitely recommend you use the Mac instead, even though now the iPad has the same chip as the Mac. So yeah, I'm talking in circles, and that's the whole point. But
iPad Pro also includes the LiDAR scanner, which makes AR experiences faster and more stable. And a new adaptive True Tone flash that makes document scanning on the new Pro better than ever. It uses AI to automatically detect documents like forms and receipts. If shadows are in the way, it instantly takes multiple photos with the new adaptive flash. The frames are stitched together, and the result is a dramatically better scan.
Now, I will say that is pretty cool. Do other pieces of hardware have the capability? I don't know, but I mean, as a person who has attempted to take pictures of documents and they just look bad, so if it is as good as what Apple is showing right there, then that's great. Yeah, can the iPhone do it? I assume that it could. Can my Android devices do it? I don't know. So if Google hasn't done something yet or whatever, it's coming. But yeah, good on Apple for making this, even if it is available for, again, if it's available for other products, which I don't know.
The 12 megapixel ultra wide camera moves from the portrait to the landscape edge, just like iPad Air. This is also the new home for Face ID and a completely new charging and pairing system for Apple Pencil. We're introducing an all-new Magic Keyboard. This is the new Magic Keyboard for iPad Pro. It's been completely redesigned to be much thinner and even lighter. First, it now includes a function row for quick access to convenient controls like screen brightness. It also has a gorgeous aluminum palm rest and a larger trackpad that's even more responsive with haptic feedback. So the entire experience feels just like using a MacBook.
And I'm not going to rant and yell like I normally do, but I was waiting for him to say that. If you want it to feel just like a MacBook, just buy the MacBook. Unless you have to draw, just buy the MacBook. Yeah, I mean, because even with everything that they've shown, you're going to have a phone anyway. So for a lot of the things, dealing with the cameras or whatever, yeah, the phone would probably be the better thing to do or the better thing to use. And then you have your, and then if you had a Mac, you just send everything to the Mac and do everything there on a bigger screen with the included keyboard and trackpad. So yeah, I don't understand.
Introducing Apple Pencil Pro.
To start, we added a new sensor in the barrel of the pencil to enable new interactions. So now, for example, you can just squeeze it to bring up a new tool palette. And when you squeeze the pencil, a haptic engine delivers precise feedback that you can feel. A gyroscope allows you to roll the pencil for precise control of the tool you're using, like changing the orientation of a shaped pen or brush.
Now, I've owned one Apple Pencil, and yeah, they're fine. I mean, I guess from everything that I've ever said about these tablets, Android ones included, I'm just like, I don't understand how these fit into my use case. Now, for people who are drawers or architects or whatever, they might need them, cool. But I just wonder, in terms of, just at a hardware level now, like when they add a gyroscope or a haptic engine into the Apple Pencil, like, is that the same stuff that's currently in the iPhone? Like, I know they have them, but I wonder, like, is it the actual same piece of hardware? So now they're, let's just pull stuff from the iPhone and put it in here. Let's pull chips from over here and put them in here. So now we're just kind of converging to really one item in a different form. Like, I know it's stupid to say, oh yeah, this Apple Pencil is just an iPhone without a screen and without an A-series chip. Like, obviously that's not true, but if a lot of the guts are the same or become the same, then yeah, it's, I guess, going to be the same. Now, I think they're going to mention it, but since it's on my mind now, whatever. Now your Apple Pencil connects to the Find My network. So does that mean you can have an iCloud locked Apple Pencil? Just asking.
If you ever lose Apple Pencil Pro, you can easily locate it, since it now supports Find My. And of course, it pairs, charges, and stores magnetically on the side of iPad Pro. So that's the new Apple Pencil Pro. With its incredible new features, it begins a whole new era of creativity on iPad.
And we're also excited that Apple Pencil Pro works with the new iPad Air as well. So that's the new iPad Pro. It features the breakthrough Ultra Retina XDR display, the next level performance of M4, fast 5G cellular, and a landscape front-facing camera. The new iPad Pro comes with double the storage, which is now 256 gigabytes. The 11-inch model starts at $999, and
I mean, however many minutes ago I was ranting about, these differences, some good, or I was ranting about the differences between the iPad and the iPhone, and differences favor the iPhone sometimes and the iPad other times. For the Pro device to now just start at 256 gigs as opposed to it always, or not even always, but ever since the iPhone upgraded some stuff, or whatever, it's a Pro device. 128 shouldn't have been enough for quite some time. good, I guess. I mean, that's cool. Fine. That was, the little previous slide, but now we're talking about the price. Okay, so for $1,000, you get an 11-inch iPad, 256 gigs of storage, and that's it. If you want the keyboard stuff, it's $300, $1,300, and of course, if you want something that's a little bit bigger, we're now starting at $1,300, and then another $300 on top of that. So we are approaching MacBook Pro price if you are trying to make your iPad Pro feel like a MacBook. And I just can't understand who was doing that. And I know they exist, because otherwise they would have stopped making this stuff. But for somebody who has a 13-inch iPad, first, why did you buy it? And then, yes, if you decide that, okay, I need the keyboard or the Magic Keyboard case or whatever, now we're talking another $350. You're at $1,650. Yeah, you are so close to MacBook Pro prices, which again, when you're going through Best Buy or something, those things are frequently on sale. So you might be actually at the same price depending on when you choose to look at Best Buy or some of the other retailers. So why?
13-inch model starts at $1299. The new Magic Keyboard for iPad Pro is $299 and $349. And the new Apple Pencil Pro is just $129, an amazing value for such an incredible device. Customers can order the new iPad.
So I do wonder that, this is me just asking just to ask, and it kind of be stupid, but it's like you mentioned all these other prices. The only thing that you said was a good value was the Apple Pencil. Is it only the Apple Pencil that's a good value? The other ones you realize you're charging way too much? I wonder.
Pro, Magic Keyboard, and Apple Pencil Pro today, and they'll be available next week. Today, we're also making iPad 10th generation even more affordable. It's now just $349.
Cool. I think it started at $429 when it was released. I feel like $350 should have been the price this entire time, but in typical Apple fashion, they try to squeeze you. I want to say the price of the 9th gen iPad stayed around $350 or maybe even $299. I don't remember. But yeah, there was a significant price hike when this regular iPad was released. And I feel like, that was them just doing what they do and trying to just squeeze as much money out of their customers as possible, which is very unfortunate.
Making it a great entry point into the iPad lineup.
Thank you for joining us. Have a great day.
Cool. All right. Now that's the end of all of that. There's the Verge's stuff if you want to see any more of their things. I got to say, though, that if anybody's made it this far, thanks. The iPad is a fine product. All right. Like I can't dispute the fact that what's inside and outside of it, it's a good all-around product. My personal feelings of iPad OS and iOS is that Apple purposely limits what the hardware could do and just makes the experience worse for the user. So be it. But in terms of why the iPad, the iPhone, and the Mac all exist and they all overlap in the ways that they do, I'm just like, man, this is, it's always hard for me to recommend tablets. And that's Android tablets as well. That if you have a phone, what you do, and you have a laptop, what you might, I don't see a huge point for the iPad or my Galaxy Tab S9 over there. So yeah, I appreciate The Verge for making this 12-minute cut, which I have turned into close to an hour cut. But I'm going to do some light editing, reduce some of it down, and then upload it. So yeah, if you're here, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. And yeah, I'm looking forward to people getting them in their hands and talking about them to see how the iPad Pro with M4 compares to not only the iPad Pro with M2, but the MacBook Pro, but the MacBook Air with M2 and M3. Shoot, might as well compare it to the iPad Air with M2 as well.